Gracie Jiu-Jitsu rocks. Welcome to the Gracie Jiu-Jitsu Rocks podcast, a podcast dedicated to Gracie Jiu-Jitsu and all things Gracie, including self-defense, competition, anti-bullying, women's self-defense and empowerment, nutrition, and most especially, the people involved in Gracie Jiu-Jitsu. This podcast is for the average Joe. It's for anyone who practices, trains, teaches, or just loves to talk about or hear about Gracie Jiu-Jitsu. We'll explore the lives of Gracie Jiu-Jitsu practitioners, how they got involved in the art, and what effect it's had on their lives. So buckle up and enjoy the ride. Welcome to episode 17 of the Gracie Jiu-Jitsu Rocks podcast. I'm your host, Marty Josie, and thanks for tuning in. Today I have the privilege of speaking with Gui Valente of the world-renowned Valente Brothers Jiu-Jitsu. But before we get to that, let's start with our Jiu-Jitsu quote, and that is, "Always assume that your opponent is going to be bigger, stronger, and faster than you, so that you learn to rely on technique, timing, and leverage rather than brute strength." And that quote is from Grandmaster Helio Gracie. What a great quote it is. So let's talk for a moment about development this week in the jiu-jitsu community. So I'm sure most of my listeners know who Chael Sonnen is, the MMA fighter, and he was recently one of the participants in Metamoris 5. He lost a match to Andre Galvao, and he's been a long time highly decorated wrestler and grappler, and he was recently awarded his purple belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. I don't remember the instructor who awarded it, but I do know he's a high-level, very well-respected Gracie Barra instructor. So it's interesting to read the comments online about how people feel about Chael getting his purple belt. Some people are very supportive, and some people are downright offended that he got a purple belt, and they don't feel like he's been in Jiu-Jitsu long enough to warrant that. So it's interesting. What do you think? I'd love to hear your opinion. Go to the website and post your comments. I'd love to get a discussion going on about this. I'm a big fan of Chael. I know he has his MMA persona. Really gets people's goat with a lot of things he says, but I think deep down at the heart of things, he's a very good guy. Loved watching him coach on the Ultimate Fighter season he was a coach on. I think he has a great work ethic, and it's true he may not have been in jiu-jitsu as long as a lot of people who get a purple belt, but I do think, bringing that high skill of wrestling and grappling for so many years probably sped up his advancement, as well as getting ready for Metamoris 5. He pretty much lived in the gym at Gracie Barra. So anyway, let me know what you think, and we'll have a great discussion about that. Interestingly enough, also this week, it was put out that Justin Bieber also got a purple belt from Eddie Bravo, and there was a lot of comments on this, and a lot of people were surprised and very upset. Not a big Justin Bieber fan, but for those who haven't realized it, this was a joke. If you look at the photo of Eddie Bravo and Justin, it's a much younger Justin from, a number of years ago. And apparently Eddie was just having some fun with everybody. So ease up, everybody. Don't get so excited about it. All right. Let's move on to today's guest, By the way, in researching the Valentes for the show, I found out that the word Valente, or Valente in Portuguese, means brave. So that's a pretty cool fact that I learned. Okay, it's an honor and privilege to be able to interview my guest today, Gui Valente. So let's meet him now. Okay, my guest today is Professor Gui Valente of the world-renowned Valente Brothers Jiu-Jitsu. So welcome, sir, and thank you so much for taking the time to speak with us today.
Thank you for having me, and it's a pleasure.
So let's just start by having you tell us a little bit about your jiu-jitsu journey, how you got started, what it's been like over through the years for you, and how it led to where you are today.
Well, our jiu-jitsu journey actually started out with my grandfather when he decided to join through my father. Initially, they decided to join the Academia Gracie, the original Academia Gracie in Rio de Janeiro, in downtown Rio, the original school. And so today, myself, my brothers, we represent the third generation of the Valente family to practice jiu-jitsu under Grandmaster Hélio Gracie. For us, there was a true blessing. We consider it to be a privilege to have had access and contact we had growing up, practically having Grandmaster Hélio as a grandfather for us. We started training with him when we were 2-3 years old on a consistent basis, taking private lessons, usually twice a week. And a lot of times as we were growing up, we were also fortunate enough to spend weekends and sometimes even an entire vacation, summer vacation, living with him in his ranch in the mountains of Rio de Janeiro. So
wow.
That really shaped not just, obviously, our technique, but also our character. My father really took advantage of the relationship, almost the father-son relationship he had with Grandmaster Hélio to help him and my mom in the upbringing of his sons, and we benefited tremendously from that relationship.
Absolutely. What an incredible opportunity to be raised in that atmosphere with that opportunity. Let's go back for a second. You mentioned your grandfather. Now, he was a naturalist and a homeopathic physician. Is that right?
Yes, he was. He was one of the first ones in Brazil, really, to dedicate himself as a doctor to the homeopathic specialization, if you can call it this way, and
right.
and really using homeopathic to help his patients cure themselves in a more natural way, which is very connected to the original Gracie way. So I guess there was already maybe that connection was part of the mutual interest and the friendship that quickly developed between our families.
Wow, that's really interesting. And he obviously was ahead of his time getting into that arena, that realm of health, way before most people even knew about it or considered it. So that's really
and
cool.
My grandfather, Silo Valente, he was a very benevolent man. He really worked as a doctor, and I think that our family has a very big tradition in the medical field, and sometimes we actually, Grandmaster Hélio would play with my father and say that, you know what, Pedro, my father, your kids chose my profession rather than your profession. And my father was, no, I'm very proud. And what we say is that, you know what, I think that we dress white, so we're close to the doctors. And on top of that, I think it's the medicine of the future, because what we do and what we teach our students is really all about the prevention of diseases and a lot of the problems that come to us through a negative lifestyle. And through the Jiu-Jitsu lifestyle that we learned with Grandmaster Helio and with our father, I think we really help our students tremendously in the prevention of many diseases and problems that come, as I said, from a negative, unhealthy lifestyle.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more. I think if we get out of the body's way, so to speak, and let it emphasize its own power of healing by healthy living, that's really where the power is. But so many of the things that our society does as a whole really goes against that and interrupts that natural process. So that's really cool. Now, how did your journey lead you to the Miami area?
Well, I think our father played a big role in that. We always went to an American school, even though we grew up in Brazil. We grew up attending an American school. Pedro actually attended a British school when he was younger, but then we spent, I personally and my younger brother, from 3 years old all the way to senior to graduating in an American school. And my dad really wanted us to come overseas, to come to the United States to earn our college degrees. So when the time came for my brother Pedro to make his decision, Pedro really wanted to go to California because he spent many of his summers visiting Horion, and at the time, those early years where Horion brought all his brothers and cousins. I remember at one point, Pedro spent almost 2 months, 3 months living with Horion, Royce, Hickson, Henzo, Hoyler, Higan Machado, I believe.
Oh my gosh!
And I might be forgetting Holker, and they were all, I think, Carlos Machado too. They're all living together. The early days that when Horion started bringing all of the Gracie family to work with him, and because of that, Pedro obviously wanted to come to California. But my father thought Miami would be a better place for us because of the distance, being closer to Brazil, to Rio, more flights. And then Pedro was accepted to the University of Miami, and that's where it started. He came to Miami, coincidentally in the same year of the first UFC, which he was part of Royce's training. Royce invited him to California, and then they went, I think, was it Denver? I think it was Denver. The first one was in Denver, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, I believe so.
Yeah, and Pedro was there, and unfortunately I couldn't go. They didn't let me off school. My grades at the time weren't the best, so I wasn't allowed to attend. But that's what happened. My brother came, and that's what, he developed a program, a club at the University of Miami, and that's really what originated the school, and the rest is history.
Wow, that's great. That's very interesting to hear how all that happened. And Miami's certainly a great place to end up in, so many different cultures and influence there. What a great location.
We're very fortunate, especially coming from Rio. We obviously missed the mountains and the hills, but Miami has beautiful beaches, the ocean, and it really allows us to maintain our lifestyle, going to the beach. We live very close to the beach, so it's very nice. And actually going back a little bit to the Jiu-Jitsu connection with Miami and my brother Pedro, Grandmaster Helio was the one that really motivated my brother to start teaching. When my brother arrived, he visited some schools, some different martial arts, and even though he had fun training, it was nothing like what we were receiving from Grandmaster Helio, that focus on self-defense. And that's when Grandmaster Helio told him to, start teaching your friends. That will be the best way for you to develop. And that's what actually led him to starting the club.
And you guys have really, really been true to that philosophy and that influence or that emphasis of the Grandmaster on self-defense and keeping it at the heart of your jiu-jitsu.
Yes, because, again, and that's why I said that we were very fortunate to have the connection with Grandmaster Hélio and to have the hundreds, thousands of privates we had with him and hours of training we had with him, because we grew up already at a time where Jiu-Jitsu had, in great part, transitioned, mutated, if you can say, towards sport competition. That process began in the late 1960s, especially in the 70s and 80s, and we grew up in the 80s, 90s, and the truth is that the way Jiu-Jitsu was being taught, especially in the group classes and in most schools in Brazil, was for sports. But because we were having privates with Grandmaster Hélio, and because we were so connected to him, and with Professors Hoyler, at one point with Hickson, still living in Brazil, with Professor Holker, we had access to Jiu-Jitsu as a self-defense form. And especially my father, who learned Jiu-Jitsu in the 1950s, before sport began, before the whole sport movement began, and for him, Jiu-Jitsu was 100% self-defense. Jiu-Jitsu was the sidekick standing up, the jab standing up, the whole strategy standing up, the possibility of clinching or not clinching, being able to fight on your feet, the throws, very important, and obviously the ground. And on top of that, the philosophy, which he learned with Grandmasters Carlos and Hélio Gracie. So that very integral, holistic approach to Jiu-Jitsu, which in the 1980s and 90s and later, especially nowadays, you see very Jiu-Jitsu completely geared towards sport, which is okay, and we have nothing against that. We actually admire the champions who dedicate their lives and who learn Jiu-Jitsu already as a sport. You see, what happens today, and this is what I explain to people, some students, this black belt, he doesn't know self-defense. And I'm like, look, it's not that he doesn't know or he doesn't teach. It's simple. Jiu-Jitsu changed. In the 1980s, the generation that learned Jiu-Jitsu in the 1980s, 1990s, they learned Jiu-Jitsu already as a competitive sport. There was never a focus on, a knife defense, a collar grab defense. If the guy punches you in the face, if the guy attacks you from behind, there was never an interest there was not, I would say, even time to do that, because the goal of the school, of the instructor, was to prepare students to win medals and tournaments. And so I think it's very easy to understand if you understand of why it changed, if you understand the history of what happened.
Interesting. So in a lot of ways, it's become two different arts as such. There are some people that still practice it in entirety, or all those aspects, but there are a lot of them that are fragmented and focus only on the sport.
Well, I don't like to separate, because we all share the name Jiu-Jitsu. I think that what we can do and what we really want to do is we want to help educate. We want to help educate, because we don't want there to, even though it happened, and maybe some people tell me it's already too late. They tell my brothers it's already too late. I don't think it's going to change. But we don't want there to be a redefinition of Jiu-Jitsu, where and I you know what, I see that in Brazil. Sometimes I go to Brazil to visit family, and I see that my friends who are not interested in competition, who have jobs, who work in a bank, in an office, and they tell me, Gui, you know what? I want to learn self-defense, so I'm going to practice this or that martial art, and they don't talk about Jiu-Jitsu. Jiu-Jitsu in Brazil today, and this for us is very difficult to understand and to agree with, but Jiu-Jitsu today in Brazil lost a lot of its self-defense reputation. A lot of people today don't see Jiu-Jitsu as a system that teaches you how to defend yourself. They see it as a competitive sport, similar, the same way judo is perceived, or wrestling, Olympic wrestling. And I think that the sport, people that like that, they should have the right to do it, and we're not trying to control what people do, by no means, but I think that we have to respect and we have to protect the essence of jiu-jitsu. We cannot lose. We cannot allow the essence of jiu-jitsu to be lost. And that's really our quest. That's our mission. I think that's what we learned from our Grandmaster Hélio Gracie, and we're going to keep doing it. We're going to fight hard here to keep doing it, and through our students. We're very fortunate to have amazing students that help us tremendously in this mission.
Well said. And you guys are certainly living the lifestyle and walking the walk and continuing to be true ambassadors for that way of thinking and acting. So. And
Marty, let me also add that we never, even though jiu-jitsu was always part of our life, there was never an option. Sometimes parents come to us and they tell us, oh, my son who's 5, 6, 7 years old, 4, he doesn't want to train right now. He doesn't want to do it. So I'm going to let him do basketball or play soccer a little bit, and maybe he'll come back. And I'm like, wow, how can a 5 or 6-year-old boy determine what's best for him? And I always ask the mother and the father, whomever I'm speaking with, I'm always asking, if he comes in and he says that he doesn't want to go to school, is that an option? Of course not. So for us, and I'm, and again, very fortunate for the education we had, because it was never an option. Jiu-jitsu was as important as going to school. Sometimes my dad, after we got home from, obviously in the morning going to school, and then right after school going to jiu-jitsu classes, my dad would call me and say, son, how was jiu-jitsu? And I would tell him. And how was school? Sometimes he would even ask, how was jiu-jitsu first? So it was always a part of our education. So, that itself is a huge example, and that's something that we try to transmit to our students.
Well, that's great. And I think an issue is you came from a background where your father understood the importance and what it would give you throughout your life. And there's so many parents that think of martial arts in general as another activity like dance or basketball or whatever. They can do this one or that one. It's all the same. It doesn't matter. It'll keep them occupied. But they don't see the real deep value of learning jiu-jitsu. And I think the more people realize that as parents, the more they would really kind of push and make sure their kids are in it.
Yes, 100%. And let me also say that for us, we were not raised to be jiu-jitsu competitors. We were part of the band, of the school band. We were part of the basketball team, of the soccer team, of the baseball team. We had a very busy life as young kids. Our parents really thought that was important for us to develop playing team sports and understanding, what it's like to be in a team sport. But jiu-jitsu was always there. And we grew up like that. We grew up, actually, we never thought of ourselves as jiu-jitsu instructors. It just happened in a very natural way. When my brother, as I said, came to Miami, we went to college. We got our degrees. My older brother, Pedro, has a MBA from the University of Miami. I have a master's degree in sport administration, sport finance, sport marketing. My younger brother has a degree in criminology. So I think that's one also of the great advantages we have when it comes to our connection with our students. The way we apply jiu-jitsu to our lives is very similar to the students that come through our doors, who are professionals, or the parents of the children. They can really find a correlation between, hopefully, use us as role models in that sense. So I think that's also, very important when we discuss the role a jiu-jitsu teacher has, not just in the technical aspect, but in the aspect that a lot of people don't realize this, but the jiu-jitsu teacher becomes a role model. And for Grandmaster Hélio, that was very, very important. And we try to maintain that here through our Absolutely. And speaking of Grandmaster Hélio,
any story that comes to mind? I'm sure you have many, many stories, but anything that comes to mind you can share with us about him, as well as what you consider the most important thing you learned from him.
Well, when you asked me this, the first story that came to my mind, and there's many, but the first story that came to my mind, and it might be actually a good teaching story, is something that happened maybe, I would say, about 8 years ago. And Grandmaster Helio was here. We were very, again, I keep saying that, but it's the truth. We were very fortunate. He would come to Miami. Every time he went to California, he would stop in Miami. He would get a connection, and his trip, he would spend a few weeks here, sometimes 2 weeks with us.
Oh, wow.
And then he would go to California. So this from 1997 to 2007, the last time he came, he left Brazil. He came to America. And, he would come sometimes twice a year. So he was with us, and he would completely, from, the first class in the morning till the last class, he would have his kimono on, and he would be assisting us in classes and teaching his private. He had his own private schedule, and obviously every time he came, he had a seminar that he taught, and at home, he was the one doing all the juices and preparing the food. Unbelievable energy, super, super energy. But what happened was that there was a Brazilian black belt visiting, who actually, I think he was moving to Miami, and he had received his black belt from a Brazilian instructor. And Grandmaster Helio met him for the first time when this black belt was taking our fundamentals class, which we also call it the Grandmaster program, which is an adaptation made by my brother, my father, I would say, with the approval of Grandmaster Helio's original 36-lesson program that then became a 40-lesson program, also known as the Episode 1. We adapted that program with all of the self-defense techniques. I think it's over about 100 techniques into a group class. We started that, I think, in 2000. And this black belt was taking that class, and he did not know the self-defense techniques. And it was a bit of an awkward situation. Obviously, for us, we never felt like telling a student who practices jiu-jitsu under a Brazilian jiu-jitsu instructor to change his belt. Actually, we don't, as black belts ourselves, we don't think it's our position to ever do that. And we don't even agree when other students or other jiu-jitsu teachers do that, have disrespect someone else's belt. But Grandmaster Ed, in his capacity as the Grandmaster, seeing that the black belt was not comfortable with the techniques, and seeing that it created actually an awkward situation for him, because students in the class would come up to him asking him questions about the moves. As they were reviewing the techniques in the first 15 minutes of the class, they're practicing, they're trying to remember the defense against the bear hug over the arms, or defense against the headlock, or the defense against the sucker punch, or the leg hook, or any of the techniques. And the self-defense, the stand-up self-defense techniques, this black belt did not know. So after class, I was teaching a private already, and when I come out of the private, I noticed that Grandmaster Helio is talking to this black belt in one of our private rooms. They're having a meeting. And after this meeting, Grandmaster Helio tells us that he actually told this black belt that he should not wear a black belt. And I think it had the instructor bar. It had a red bar, maybe even the two white stripes around the red bar. He said, look, I don't think it's good for you to wear this bar and this belt, because it confuses students, because you're wearing a belt that represents knowledge, it represents technique, it represents the knowledge of a curriculum which you don't know. So you can wear this belt anywhere you want. I'm not here telling you that you cannot wear the belt, but you should not wear the belt in a technical class like this. So
Wow.
Grandmaster Andrew, to our surprise, told us that this student, who at the time was probably in his 30s, did not respond well. So here's the Grandmaster, red belt of the system, the man responsible for actually developing the system, telling you that you should not wear the belt. And he did not respond well. And Grandmaster Andrew asked him, look, I see that you're not responding well. I can show you technically right now that you don't deserve this belt. So Grandmaster, he was a little bit disrespectful. So Grandmaster Edu increased up the notch too a bit, and we can go right now, and I can prove to you. So obviously, at that point, we approached and we made ourselves available for the test, which obviously was refused. And Grandmaster Helio at that point said, please, I don't think he's coming back because of the way he reacted to my request. And Grandmaster Helio was super, as polite as he could have possibly been. And Grandmaster Helio asked us, please return his, whatever he paid to you guys, please return it to him in its totality and include my letter to him. And Grandmaster Helio wrote him a letter, teaching him a lesson through the letter. And that was it. So
wow,
that's a story. I don't think I ever told the story.
That's really interesting. Yeah, what a great story. He had a lot of character, obviously, and really stayed true to his vision.
I really think that no one else really could do this except for the Grandmaster. It's the Grandmaster, the man who developed the art that we practice. If he believes that you should wear another belt, you should wear another belt. I think that sometimes in Jiu-Jitsu, unfortunately, in our community, an area that we need to develop, I think in general as a whole in our community is hierarchy. I feel that sometimes, with very few exceptions, Grandmaster Ed was an exception, but there is a lack of respect for hierarchy. I think there is a little bit of too much respect for accomplishment, and that accomplishment means, okay, I respect this guy because he can choke me out. As soon as he gets a little older, as soon as he's out of shape and he can't catch me anymore, I don't respect him any longer. And that's something that, definitely is an area that in Jiu-Jitsu we all need to learn a little bit more, and something that we do not find in our schools because we really shaped our schools in a way, something that we learned from Master Ed and from our father too. Even the relationship that I have with my brothers is really based on respect, on hierarchy, on really respecting each other.
Right. And thinking about that, if someone's looking for a school or an academy, what are the most important things for someone to consider or look for? What's the most important in the training environment? How important is that hierarchy, and what other things are important when someone's looking for an academy?
I think the number one is, first of all, doing your homework as far as, okay, what do you want? And that's usually what I ask students that come in through our doors. What are you looking for? What do you want? If you're looking for self-defense, if you're looking for a true lifestyle that comes from, for example, if you want to learn Jiu-Jitsu because of Grandmaster Helio's stories or because of Royce Gracie, then you have to find a school that connects you to that essence, Jiu-Jitsu as a form of self-defense. If you're looking for a competition, for tournament, then you should look for a school that fits those guidelines. And I think that as Jiu-Jitsu instructors, we should be very honest and truthful with our students so that they really get what they're looking for. So I think it's, I would suggest that people really do their homework, research. Today with the internet, you can really find out and, even in depth, people's reputations and their lineage. I think a very good way, and that's something my father did, my grandfather did when he found the Academia Gracie in Brazil, the Gracie School in Brazil. He did that, the original Gracie Academy. He looked at the history, what were those brothers about, and it matched what he wanted. He wanted something that would help him. He wanted something that would help my dad, who was a young kid at the time, cope with, even at that time, the bullies and increase confidence. So I think it's really about you determining what do you want.
Okay. So having a real clear vision of what you want and where you want to get to, and then seeking out somewhere that has that essence.
And you know what? And going to class and experimenting. See, myself, my brothers, my father, we never trained jiu-jitsu outside of Grandmaster Hélio, of the original Academia Gracie. We never. And until today, we're connected. When we go to Brazil, we go to the school where Hoyler, actually now Holker, teaches. When Grandmaster Hélio was alive, we would go to his house. We would do a private with him. We would train with him. If I'm in California, I visit Royce. I visit Hickson. I visit Hiro and Henner. I'm always connected, and right now I'm forgetting names, but I stay connected to my jiu-jitsu home. But we don't believe that a student who is curious should not have the right to go visit a school in making sure that he's happy where he is. Walk in, grab a chair, sit down, watch the class. See if it's something that is good for you. See if it's something that, meets your expectations. If you feel the environment is safe, take a class. So I think people really need to be comfortable, and they need to be they need to be happy with the place they choose to train.
That's so important. If you're not comfortable and it's not a good fit, you're much less likely to stay with it and stay on that path. So that is really important. And considering staying on the path, I think the highest amount of people doing jiu-jitsu tend to drop off between blue and purple, if I'm not mistaken. So why do you think this is, and what advice do you have for blue belts who are on the road to purple belt?
I think because of lack of structure. I think this happens due to a lack of structure. I think that sometimes students, they might hit a wall. People use that term, and they don't see where to go. Either they become competitors, and then the drive is competition, and when they retire, they don't want to even practice anymore, or they don't know what else is there to be learned. They think that it's about learning a new technique every day, and instead of practicing and developing your fundamentals, I think that a school that provides a structure, a curriculum, I think that a school that provides also a safe place for you to train. See, we have students training in our school who are actually today, he had a private who's 76 years old. We just taught him a private this morning. Yeah, 76 years old. He comes religiously twice a week. He comes in, takes his classes, he spars, he does his self-defense, he does everything. We have another student. We have another student that was here yesterday who comes also twice a week, sometimes 3 times a week. Sometimes he wants to come 4 times a week, who is 73 or 74 years old. We have quite a few students in their 60s, many students in their 50s. So, we actually, and we have a lot of brown belts, black belts. So I think we have about now mid-30s black belts that we have awarded, and they all train. They all still train. So we're very proud of that, actually.
That is really, really great to hear. I love hearing stories of people as they're getting older, up in their years, and they're still very active and doing remarkable things, like even stories about people running marathons or doing just different things, kind of defying that whole notion of, you have to slow down and or just kind of quit doing things you love, physical things when you get older. I love all examples like that, but especially examples in jiu-jitsu like you just shared. That's so motivating and inspirational for me, and I'm sure to other people that are hearing this. Okay, so you guys are teamed up with Hoist Gracie and the Hoist Gracie Network, and they do their promotions at your academy now. So what are those? What have those events been like? And just share with us about that.
The event has been formidable. It's actually an honor for us to have Hoist Gracie part of the process now in our school when we test our brown belts and we award our black belts. And Hoist, who travels the world teaching jiu-jitsu and has many representatives who have been with him for 10 plus, sometimes 15 plus years, 20 plus years, he really wanted to ensure that all of these students who are, for the most part, guys who run schools, some of them are just students and take classes, but to make sure that they were practicing jiu-jitsu, as we said earlier, in its totality. They understood jiu-jitsu as a self-defense system. They understood the philosophy of jiu-jitsu, and they were preparing, Hoist was preparing them to be role models, to be teachers of young children, and to set a good example in society. And Hoist, who's been a brother to us, he now, every year in December, his students all come to Miami to participate, and the ones that are ready to test, they test. And it's great because it's a movement that with Hoist becomes automatically a lot stronger, a movement to bring jiu-jitsu back to its essence. Jiu-jitsu cannot be just about sport. It cannot be just about the tough guy who is promoted based on tapping the other students in class. Because actually, I don't think that anyone was tougher than Grandmaster Eddie Gracie. He was the toughest man I ever met, most courageous man I ever met. And Grandmaster Eddie was the one that taught that for you to be a teacher, obviously as a black belt under Grandmaster Eddie, you understand honor, you understand courage, and you're ready to die for jiu-jitsu. But you understand that knowledge is key. You understand that for you to transmit jiu-jitsu, you need to understand, you need to be a person that understands the moral code of jiu-jitsu. And this test that we have in Miami is really based on making sure that students are in touch with this style and with this philosophy.
That's great. That's great. And those gatherings tend to get pretty big, don't they? Several hundred people?
Yeah, several hundred people. And, it's great because we have our students that all come, and we have students of Hoist that come, and now we have, actually here in Miami, we have locations in Fort Lauderdale, we have a location in Pembroke Pines, we have a location in Coral Gables, and now we're North Miami Beach headquarters. Plus, we have black belts of ours that also teach in other countries, in Houston, outside of another state, but in Guatemala. We have, and Hoist has a variety and has many teachers coming from the United Kingdom and from Kuwait and from Israel, from Portugal. So for us, it's actually it's an event we all of us and our students, we all look forward to throughout the year.
Yeah, it sounds great. I hope to make it down for one sometime in the near future. So I know you are pushed for time, and I want to respect that. Just want to ask you about your upcoming trip to, is it Amsterdam?
Yes, I'll be in Amsterdam teaching a seminar to a lot of my European students it's October 11th and 12th. So anyone who's interested can send an email to info@Yamato Gym. Yamato is YAMATO gym.NL for Netherlands. N as in November, L as in Leonard, NL. And it would be great to have you join.
Absolutely. And while we're giving out information, go ahead and give your website to your academies, if you would.
Well, our website is valentebrothers.com, and you can also join us on our Facebook page, which is facebook.com/Valente Brothers. Instagram also at Valente Brothers, Twitter at Valente Brothers, and our YouTube channel, which is Valente Brothers TV. So youtube.com/Valente Brothers TV. And yes, we have some very nice philosophy videos and some talks that we do frequently with my brother. And, anytime anyone wants to come to Miami to enjoy a nice weather, make sure they come visit us too.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And in closing, Helio Gracie Week is coming up. What are your plans for that week?
Yeah, I actually spoke to Hiro last night, and he told me all about the plans in Torrance. We're going to have, as usual, we have the Eddie Gracie Challenge, which is a self-defense challenge where we every year we award a champion a trophy, and really we look at the technique of the Grandmaster Helio's original self-defense system. And we will also have, on the day of Grandmaster Helio's birthday, October 1st, we will have an event at the school at the North Miami Beach location. Everyone is invited to at 7 p.m. October 1st, 7 p.m. in North Miami Beach.
Fantastic. Well, Professor, you have certainly made a huge impact on many people's lives throughout the world through jiu-jitsu. So much respect, much honor. Thank you so much for your time and the opportunity to talk to you.
Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity. And in closing, our mission is to maintain what we learned from our teacher alive. We feel that it can benefit, as you said, people tremendously. When we compare the benefits of jiu-jitsu, we don't really see anything that can benefit us more than jiu-jitsu. And we're here to help. We're here to assist everyone that wishes to learn and be part of this amazing lifestyle. So thank you very much.
My pleasure, sir. Take care. Okay, time for the Make a Difference, Make an Impact segment. Today's subject, what is a workout? So I'd like to share something. I'm not sure where I got it, actually. I've had it for a long time. And it's talking about working out. It could just as easily be talking about what is jiu-jitsu. So check it out and see what you think. What is a workout? A workout is 25% perspiration and 75% determination. Stated another way, it is 1 part physical exertion and 3 parts self-discipline. Doing it is easy once you get started. A workout makes you better today than you were yesterday. It strengthens the body, relaxes the mind, and toughens the spirit. When you work out regularly, your problems diminish and your confidence grows. A workout is a personal triumph over laziness and procrastination. It is the badge of a winner, the mark of an organized, goal-oriented person who has taken charge of his or her destiny. A workout is a wise use of time and an investment in excellence. It is a way of preparing for life's challenges and proving to yourself that you have what it takes to do what is necessary. A workout is a key that helps unlock the door to opportunity and success. Hidden within each of us is an extraordinary force. Physical and mental fitness are the triggers that can release it. A workout is a form of rebirth. When you finish a good workout, you don't simply feel better, you feel better about yourself. Like I said, I've had that for a long time, and every time I read it, it just kind of inspires me to work out. Okay, that's going to do it for today. As always, thank you for listening. I always welcome your feedback and comments. You can go to the website at www.GracieJujitsuRocks and leave a comment. Please like us on our Facebook page if you haven't already. And you can also go and rate the show as well as leave comments on iTunes as well. Until next time, this is Marty Josie, and I'll see you on the mat.